Did you get the writing part over with? Awesome, because today we're starting to edit, and we're going to talk about paragraphs. So now begins the editing part, which is more important in my opinion, and you should really take your time now to refine your writing and get everything in order. Paragraphs serve to give your text some visual structure, and the idea of a paragraph is also to encapsulate one idea per paragraph. You should not go into tangents within a paragraph. That is really bad style. If you want to open up a new topic, then you can do so, but in a new paragraph. Another thing about paragraphs is that it's good practice to begin the paragraph with the main message in the paragraph. I've already mentioned that a couple of times in the series, and that's because I personally think that's very important to further allow the reader to quickly navigate your paper. You simply don't want somebody who feels obligated to read your paper to suffer through it. You want them to quickly and easily pick up the information that is inside your paper. And an extreme way to do that would be to have topical sentences, meaning the first sentence is basically a headline over the paragraph that tells you what's inside. And the third thing I want you to do is to look at how each paragraph flows or leads towards the next. When we were discussing the outline for, I think, the introduction, here's the link up there, I talked about the storyline and how it should have a logical flow. The same is true within one paragraph. So is there a logical flow in your argument or presentation of an idea or presentation of a fact or whatever? But you also want the end of each paragraph to lead towards the beginning of the next paragraph. Think of it as raising a question that will be answered in the next paragraph. If you do that, then you should have a very nice flow from paragraph to paragraph and thus across your whole text. Alright, so let's look at an example from the literature. This time I chose a different paper that I found in my recommendations lately. The link to the paper will be in the video description. And the title is Flying on Their Own Wings. Young and adult cuckoos respond similarly to long-distance displacement during migration. So let's have a look at the first paragraph. For a lone young common cuckoo, Cuculus canorus, raised by foster parents of other species, finding the proper wintering grounds thousands of kilometers away without conspecific guidance appears almost impossible. So this is a great way to begin the introduction. It sets a scene of the struggles that the animals go through in order to survive, and it already raises the question, how do they do that? How do they actually survive in this situation? So they started the whole paper with this nice introductory sentence. So now let's see how they move on from this first idea of, wait, we have this problem here. There are these birds that need to go somewhere. So let's look at the transition between the first and the second paragraph. So the last sentence of the first paragraph is, nevertheless, evidence for true navigation in first-time avian migrants remains equivocal. So at the end of the first paragraph, you want to know what is the evidence that is equivocal. So they continue talking about the routes and breeding stages, but they're not talking about the learning at this point. This is why I think the main point that they should have put to the beginning is actually in the second to last sentence. Many aspects of the adaptive program have been revealed, such as innate timing and direction. So this is something that has to do with the evidence relating to navigation. However, the evidence about whether it involves some form of navigation remains contradictory. So this would be the question for the next paragraph, so they're becoming more specific. So the question that comes out of the first paragraph is, what is the evidence and why is it equivocal? In general, about migrating birds and navigation. And at the end of the second paragraph, they make it more specific by asking specifically what evidence there is that this kind of navigation involves some form of navigation. And then they start talking about methods. Studying responses to displacement allows us to distinguish between different types of underlying navigation strategies. They're jumping from the question whether the migration involves some form of navigation to distinguishing different navigation strategies. What should have been the point here, I think, is that there is a programming that is innately controlled for a specific period of time and direction, and that this is adaptive, so that with experience they can develop a goal area navigation program. And now they have a nice transition, actually. So they're talking about the area navigation program, which they can develop with experience. With experience, this program develops into a goal area navigation program, normally allowing the birds to pinpoint at least their breeding and winter grounds, even from unfamiliar areas. And then they continue in the next paragraph saying, such an ability, this is a direct reference to the end of the previous paragraph, so this is well done. Such an ability has been well documented in adult birds, as shown by lesser black-backed gulls, etc., etc. And the final sentence is, additionally, experiments by Ackerson and colleagues indicate that juvenile white-crowned sparrows, Zonothritia leucophris, may be able to correct for displacements, and both wind-displaced and experimentally displaced birds on the Faroe Islands showed compensatory responses. So what the paragraph is supposed to point out that there is contradicting evidence for the abilities of juveniles. So the transition was well done, using such an ability to refer back to program to develop into a goal area navigation program, that this was well documented, but they take too long to then point out that for juveniles this is not well documented. So the main point in this paragraph is actually somewhere in the middle. However, while the displacements of starlings and Zonothritia sparrows did not indicate such an ability in juveniles, contradicting evidence has been reported in other studies. So that is the main point. So they want to point out that this is not clear yet. We only know it for adults. So I would have put that in the beginning. So I would have said such an ability may be well documented in adult birds. However, there's contradicting evidence regarding juveniles' ability to do this. And then I would have started writing the same things that they did. So they end this paragraph citing data, and then they go to given the contradicting evidence about the ability to compensate displacement. So they refer to this contradicting evidence that they explained in the previous paragraph, in the next paragraph, telling us that they challenged this experimentally. They forced the birds to use the ability. That's what they mean with challenged. This is the final paragraph where they go through what they have been doing. Nothing to say here more about it. You can read it yourself. And I would have wanted them to give me some outlook of what the findings were, but they're not doing that. You can do it this way. I've heard several people say, oh no, you need to leave some mystery. I am not that kind of reader. I want the information right here. I want the introduction to be a complete story in itself, Obviously with the emphasis on why they do the study and giving some background information and then only dropping the findings and the end, but still a complete story. These are two different styles, I think. So overall, I think the authors did a very good job writing the introduction. They use flowery language a little bit. They're becoming a little bit creative here and there. This is not my style, but these are all choices that you are allowed to make. Also, here and there, I might have written paragraphs differently. I might have even cut one of them down to a single sentence, maybe even. So there's no rule that says that a paragraph has to be more than one sentence, honestly. So I would have done so. I would also have mentioned the conclusions at the end of the introduction. Again, it is definitely in the title, so I really like that part. The first part of the title I'm not so fond of, but that's fine. I mean, as I said, these are choices you can make. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this introduction, and I think it will be really helpful to you to have a closer look at the writing in that paper. You can download the PDF with all the information that I just gave you in this video from the link in the description box. And if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. These things really help me in the YouTube algorithm really likes thumbs ups. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please leave them in the comment section. This really helps me tailor this channel to the needs of the student, which is really something that I want to do. If you want to see the other videos in this playlist, there will be a link to the playlist in the end card. I thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.